Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to talk a little bit about excavations. An excavation is any man-made cut, crack, or crevice that is done by any means of earth removal. That is, whether you go and take a garden spade, a spoon, kick it with your boot, or you go out there and grab you a brand new track hoe. When you crack into that dirt, that is an excavation. However, not a big deal if it's a small one, but let's say you get to a depth of 4 foot or greater, then it becomes a competent person required excavation per OSHA CFR 1926, section 652. And there's a lot of things that we need to consider when it comes to this. First of all, there are many different hazards that are involved with excavations. Number one is the most obvious one, and that is the cave-in. Dirt falling in on you. Now, if the excavation is 4 foot or greater, you have to have a competent person come and sign off on it. However, in some situations, a competent person can deem it safe without a protective system up until 4 foot and 11 inches. Once it gets to 5 foot, there will always be a protective system required. Protective systems vary depending on the types of soil. There are all sorts of soil measurement and classification tools and resources that can be used. Please take advantage of them. Dirt is much heavier than the average person thinks. Matter of fact, does anyone know how heavy a 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot cube of the average soil would weigh? Anyone want to take a guess at it? Usually people say about 300, 400 pounds. I know I went to college and got my safety degree, and I thought I knew it all. And my first week of the first safety job that I ever had, I had to eat that. I said the exact same thing. I said 300 pounds. I was sitting there shoulder to shoulder with equipment operators that had been digging dirt longer than I've even been alive. And you know what they also said? 300, 400, 500 pounds. We were all wrong. That instructor, when he told me that the average cubic yard of dirt, that's 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, weighed on average about a ton, anywhere between 1,600 to 3,200 pounds, that just blew my mind. But then, a couple days passed, and I was working out my driveway. Yeah, I know, believe it or not, as safety folks, we actually do some real work, just more of it off the clock than on the clock. I was filling in a couple holes in my driveway with some ready to be mixed concrete in a sack. And I was carrying that sack, and I realized it weighed 80 pounds. Now, how big is that 80-pound sack? About like this, by this, by this, about the size of a watered out pillow, right? And that's 80 pounds. So I want you to think about how many of those 80-pound bags you could pour in that one bucket of that track hoe, that backhoe, or that excavator. Now I want you to think about that spoil pile that's sitting right outside the excavation. How many of those bucket loads did it take to make that spoil pile? When you see that spoil pile next time, don't think of it as it's just dirt, it's just there. That spoil pile that's right up over by your head can easily weigh as much as multiple pickups parked on the side of that excavation. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on about this all day, but I'm not going to. We've got a lot of ground to cover. But excavations, my background's in pipeline. You can really say it's my dirt. Or I guess you could say, I really dig it.